The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Well, welcome to the Hot Lunch Program. I'm Rob Rosenthal, coming to you live from the Big Apple, New York City, New York, where it was 72 degrees today. Man, it was beautiful. And this is episode 1 of the Hot Lunch Program. So, settle in, grab yourself, a snack, maybe even better, something to drink. I happen to be enjoying right now as we speak some baked shrimp chips, wasabi flavor that I got in Koreatown today. You can do better than that, but they're lovely. Settle in, anyway. Let's have some fun with food, okay? That's the idea. I mean, look, a lot of people make food. I do too, but I also like to make fun of it. Now, before I explain why it's called the Hot Lunch Program, let me tell you what we're doing here. We're going to talk about our favorite subject, which is, our obsession with food. Eating it, reading about it, shopping for it, Instagramming it, dining out, of course, cooking in, snacking on it. Well, whatever it is, if you're like me, you're always one meal ahead, which is to say thinking about your next meal while you're, kind of enjoying the current one. So we're going to have some fun with food here. Now, let me just tell you about this week's topics, which are relatively wide-ranging. But I thought we'd cover, some ground here in the first episode. So here are this week's topics. What is the most unusual thing you've ever eaten? And when we get to that, we'll promise you I have a list of things that people have eaten. They are unusual, and some of them are kind of hilarious. On the other hand, let us also talk today about about food TV, the joylessness of food TV. I'm not kidding. I've been watching food television for a long time, and I'm seeing a lot of stuff that is the opposite of fun. We'll do another segment that I call This Week at Costco. Of course, those who know me know that I am the Costco ho. I spend a lot of time there. I like it. And each week, I'd like to present you a recommendation for something that I picked up at Costco, which is not just good, it's freaking awesome. Okay, anyway, another subject for this week is gossip. Because there's a lot of it going around, and I don't know. I'm feeling like, let's get in on it a little bit. I mean, there was a press release I got today about Giada's new boyfriend. I don't know if you guys know the Neelys, the couple that was big for 7 years on the Food Network. They had like a husband and wife barbecue show. They've been divorced. And anyway, they're in the news. And then we might even talk about this guy, Salt Bae. You guys know Salt Bae? If you're on Instagram, you probably know Salt Bae. We'll talk a little bit about him. I thought it would be fun if we had some time also to discuss something that is known as the Gummy Bear Cleanse. Long story short, those sugar-free gummy bears, man, they'll clean you out, if you know what I'm saying. But, seeing as though this is the very first episode, I feel obliged in some way to at least tell you who I am, if you don't know, and about my relationship with food, which I suppose I would call complicated. Now, if you can't already tell, I'm from New York. I would say very New York in that I not only live in New York City, but I am one of those people who, when I wake up in the morning and look out my bedroom window, I am looking at the hospital that I was born in. Obviously, as I've said before, I haven't gotten very far. but that's just the way it is. I have had a love affair with food since I was breastfed, which, was natural and organic, and obviously was locally sourced, so I felt like I was kind of ahead of my time that way. My parents, by the way, great people, not good cooks. I mean, my father, didn't cook at all. I actually did see him make something once or twice, but he screwed it up. He would make toast. He would make a piece of toast, and he would open up a can of sardines. And then before he would put the sardines on the toast, he would butter the toast, but the butter was like ice cold, so even the putting the butter on the toast shredded the toast. I mean, this guy couldn't get through a buttered piece of toast. My mother, working woman, just a wonderful woman in every way, but cooking, let's just say nobody baked a better potato, okay? So I kind of had to take it upon myself. I cooked, I watched, in fact, I was watching, in the early days, food TV shows, because it was fascinating to me, and I, would pick up some tips and then actually cook some of the meals. I mean, I literally watched a guy cook on television, and he made a dish called crepe de fruits de la mer, which was a crepe filled with various seafood in a white wine sauce. And I was a teenager, and my parents were having an anniversary, so I ended up making it for them, and I couldn't even eat it myself because that wine sauce I couldn't tolerate. It was just too exotic for me. Couldn't handle it. But I got into the professional advertising business, which was interesting for a couple of reasons. One is that it got me out of New York. I mean, I was in the international advertising business. It was a career that lasted for 25 years, and it was a really good gig. I'm not going to lie. I traveled around the world. I ate, but the best part of it was the eating. I mean, I was hanging out with great people. I've eaten at thousands of restaurants on almost every continent. So, that was just great. And then at night, I went and got a professional culinary degree. So, I got all the professional training because I was just fascinated by it. And it was great. I would shoot out of the office and go to school for 3 nights a week for a year. And it was, that was a lot of fun. And ultimately, as a guy with kids, I ended up being the one at home making all the meals. We divvied up responsibilities, and as a result of that, I ended up writing a book about based on my experience, and it's called Short Order Dad. So anyway, that's a little about me, and let me tell you about the origin of the Hot Lunch program. Now, because it stems from my advertising days. And before I even tell you about the Hot Lunch program, I will confess that when I told my friend Askia that I was calling it, the Hot Lunch program, he said, "You realize that's a nasty sexual term from Africa." And I didn't. And I looked it up and I couldn't find it. So I'm going with the Hot Lunch program, and here's why. In my days of advertising, I worked at a big advertising agency, and I worked on a big advertising account. It was Heineken beer. And it was in the days that Heineken was spending a lot of money on advertising. When I say a lot, I mean, it was $50 million, but in those, I'm talking about late 80s. That was a lot of bread. And whenever you had a big budget advertising account, you were attractive to those companies that made their money on advertising, on advertising dollar, on advertising revenue. So a lot of that $50 million, to be truthful, went into television. Heineken, and some Amstel Light, 95 calories, never tasted so imported, blah, blah, blah. But it was also these were also the days that there was something called magazines. Magazines were these kind of shiny things with paper, and they were delivered in the mail. Sometimes people picked them up at a newsstand. But anyway, the magazines, and I'm talking about, Time Magazine and Sports Illustrated and Vanity Fair. They were magazines, man. And if magazines knew that you had an advertising budget for magazines, and we did, $10 million, they were eager to eager to attract your money into their magazines. And the way that they did that was that they had salespeople. Each of the magazines had salespeople responsible. And one of the ways that they would encourage, I'm not sure encourage, one of the ways that they would promote their business is they would take you out to lunch. You know what I mean? And they would take you out to lunch, not just any old place. They would take you out because of the nature of the budget. We were taken out to some of the best restaurants in New York City, which is not a bad restaurant town. And these were the days, late 80s, mid 80s, you know what I mean, when people drank during lunch. I mean, if you haven't heard the term free martini lunch, it existed. It was okay to go out to lunch and drink. But frankly, it was mandatory on the Heineken account. I mean, we were taken out to lunch, and part of the deal was that you would order Heineken. So you had to go to an account. You had to go to a restaurant, for example, that served Heineken, but for the most part, they all did. And not only did we have lunch, we were compelled actually to order the Heineken. Not one, not two. Yeah, three. I mean, three was the average Heineken order per person per lunch. And the deal was that you wouldn't let the waiter take the empty bottles from the table. I mean, no joke. You would have a Heineken, it would be empty. The waiter would come over, you would ask for a second, he would pull the first bottle, and you would go, no. We were instructed to order the beer, leave the empties on the table with the label facing out. It was like a little mini billboard on the table, right? And we're not going to sandwich shops, and we're not going to pizza places. I went to a place called Il Nido, fancy Italian joint, where I had my first pasta primavera, right? Nani's. I mean, I could still remember the angel hair on Nani. I mean, right? The Russian tea room, where you'd go in and you'd have caviar and blini. And maybe you had a cold vodka before you started ordering your first of 3 Heinekens. We had a lot of fancy French food, Le Cirque, Le Grand Oui, all the great French places in New York in those days. And of course, the most popular restaurant that these salespeople would take us to would be the steak places, because it was a big male thing, and everybody likes steak and potatoes and lobster. Seriously, I mean, go out for lunch, have lobster or steak, some hash browns, 3 Heinekens, Sparks, Gallagher's, the Palm. And these were the days when the Palm was the Palm. There was one. They weren't in Vegas and all over the world. And then eventually there was a second one called the Palm 2. And, if you ate there enough, they put your name in a little plaque in the booth. So they took us out. We drank beer. And it was great. I mean, how could it not be? And I was kind of the food guy in-house, so I was put in charge of kind of deciding where we would go, where we would have lunch every day, and who was taking us, and that became known as Rob's Hot Lunch Program. So, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at Rob's Hot Lunch Program, harking back to the days when food was fun. Now, I should also point out that in those days, I was jogging, running, whatever you want to call it, 5 times a week. I ran 4 miles a shot, and by the end of this year of 20 miles a week and the Hot Lunch Program, I had gained 20 pounds. That was when food was fun. So I segue from that into what's food like today? Because clearly we're kind of more involved with food. We're more obsessed with food. We We take pictures of our food. We write reviews on Yelp. We read restaurant reviews. We watch television. We go to websites. But let's go to the television thing for a second, because that changed. I've been watching the food TV for a long time. And there was a time when you watched food TV, and mostly it was people, men and women, in the kitchen cooking. There weren't a lot of channels. I mean, a lot of this stuff, you would see on like PBS, like public television, right? And then the Food Network came, and the Food Network came in like 90s. You know what I mean? 90, like before 95, before mid 90s. And whatever it was then, if you think about the Food Network, in fact, like the first big hit really on the Food Network was Emeril Lagasse. Now remember, Emeril was in the kitchen, he was shouting BAM, super popular, he had a live audience, he was having a blast in there. Like, it was still kind of fun. That changed. Because when you look at food television now, it's not just the Food Network or PBS anymore. Of course, there's Travel Channel and CNN, but if you look at kind of the different genres of food television, there are kind of 2 or 3 predominant kind of genres in the food TV business, right? I mean, you have those travelogues, right? You have like Anthony Bourdain floating around. You got like Andrew Zimmern, who's great, eating weird food around the world. You still have a couple of shows that are based on kind of like just gorging on massive, inhuman amounts of food. Like, how much can you cram into your face? So I'm thinking of Man vs. Food. You have a couple of cooking shows still. Do you know? But they tend to be relegated to daytime, where people like the Pioneer Woman and your Barefoot Contessa, like they're Giada, they're cooking. You don't see them around so much at night, because your nighttime food television shows are dominated by competition, right? And of course, the granddaddy of competition shows is, your Top Chef. I mean, they're in season like 10,000. And I'm not critical. I'm not criticizing. I mean, it's popular and successful for a reason. And the people on the show, Gail Simmons is lovely. I've met her. She's just a lovely person and sweet. And Padma is an Indian goddess whose job seems to be to throw people off the show. She's the one who always going to say, "Pack your knives and go." You have Tom Colicchio, who, he doesn't smile or laugh a whole ton, but he's an impressive human being, not just because of the work he does on television, certainly not because of the restaurants, which are great. This guy is out there doing the right thing. He's an activist. Do you know what I mean? When during the Me Too movement, when it turned out that restaurants were a horrible place for women generally to work for the last 30 years, Colicchio was like the first one out of the box to say this is bad, unacceptable, etc., etc. He's the real deal. And it's not the only thing that he has done in public to promote better, healthier, smarter, more. And by the way, we don't have time for it right now, but I'll tell you who another hero is, and has nothing to do with the subject of competitive television shows. But Jose Andres, if you don't know, from Spain, over in this country with a whole lot of super successful restaurants, is a hero. And you look up Jose Andres, you'll see that he's the guy, he's the chef that keeps going back to Puerto Rico and feeding, like, putting out like 50,000, 100,000 meals. This guy is just awesome. Okay, I digress. The point that I make about these competition shows, whether it's Chopped or, like there's competitions about baking. I mean, like, baking needs to be competitive. I don't know. You got Hell's Kitchen. You got people screaming at each other. The point that I make about the television shows is not that they're inherently bad or wrong. I mean, they have their entertainment value, but the kind of cutthroat and they're like, everybody's super rushed. Every time I turn the channel, all I hear are people going 5, 4, 3. I mean, that's food television now to me a lot, and it's decidedly not fun. It's so much not fun. And I'm not suggesting that I'm not suggesting that there are implications having to do with it being not fun. I will tell you this. I don't get necessarily that in spite of our obsession with food, we're kind of enjoying it a whole lot more. I mean, that whole thing cooking looks stressful on television, I can tell you that. But one of the consequences of kind of where we are as a culture with more women working is that we're not cooking a whole lot. We may be obsessed with food, but we're cooking less of it, believe it or not. Less than any other industrialized nation on Earth. Here are some facts just to throw at you. Last year was the first time in history that there was more money spent on going out to eat and drink than on groceries. That's a fact. That's something to think about, right? 20% of American meals are consumed in a car. It's a study from Stanford University. That's no joke. But eating a meal in a car, I got to be honest with you, that's just, we've all done it. It's just, that's not fun. 1/3 of American teens are eating fast food every day. So this not cooking thing, may be a socio-cultural phenomenon. More people working, less cooking, don't have time, let's go out, let's bring it in. I'm always amused when people are bringing home food and eating it on a couch in front of a television while they're watching cooking shows. I mean, that's real porn. You've heard of food porn? That's real food porn. Watching somebody else do it while you pleasure yourself. Who's having fun out there in TV land? I'll tell you who's having fun. Guy Fieri seems to be having fun. And all of them, by the way. I mean, well, look, I'm not gonna. Guy Fieri seems to be one of these kind of figures who people love and hate. I could care less. I watch this guy on Diners, Drive-Ins, and I'm happy watching him eat. I'm happy. He's happy. I'm happy. I see food being made. I see it being eaten. Fine. Guy Fieri's having fun. I think the Barefoot Contessa is having fun, right? She's in the kitchen. She's making stuff. I mean, she's just having a good time in there. Food is lovely, and she's all good. But if you want to know who is having the most fun right now in the world of food television, look up Maddie Matheson. Holy crap. Effin' Maddie Matheson. This guy is having fun. If you have not seen him, check him out on Viceland TV. Again, this is me. I'm not promoting. I recommend things. And if you want to know who's having fun, it's Maddie Matheson on Viceland TV. I'm going to tell you this about Maddie Matheson. First of all, the guy's out of his mind. I just want to be clear about that. He's freaking crazy. That's number one. And that, in and of itself, is entertaining. Two, this guy knows his stuff, man. I mean, he knows food, and he knows how to cook it, and he damn well sure knows how to eat it and have a good time. Good for you, Maddie Matheson. Also very large, by the way. I'm just giving you the facts here. You see Maddie Matheson, the couple of things you'll notice are, one, that he's very large. Two, most of his body is covered in tattoos. I mean most. Most is covered in tattoos. And he'll go shirtless. I'm not saying he weighs 300 pounds, but let's go 275 and shirtless. A lot of tattoos. But I'm going to tell you this about Maddie Matheson. He's the best thing on food television since Emeril Lagasse in his prime, in the sense that this dude is in the kitchen. He's having some fun, right? This is like the third wave of food television, right? There was the initial wave one is like the old days, right? You had your Galloping Gourmet, you had your Julia Child, you had your Jacques Pepin. They got on, they did their thing, they cooked, they laughed, they drank, they ate. Lovely. Wave one. Wave two, going into the era of the food TV network, And it started with some, Emerald, and now it's kind of segued into where we are with the competition primarily kind of driving most of the primetime programming. And now the third wave, I'm telling you, Viceland TV, good on you. And it's not just Maddie Matheson. You can watch Eddie Huang, just fantastic, smart, traveling, commenting. You can watch Action Bronson. Bronson ain't cooking for the most part. He's traveling around the world and eating, a lot of eating. Another huge dude and eating. But fun, man, just fun. And then Maddie Matheson. If you haven't seen him, check out Maddie Matheson on Vice TV. Hilarity. Now I want to shift to subject number 3 here. Wow, I can't believe how time flies. But subject number 3 is, what is the most unusual thing you've ever eaten? And I asked the question because I belong to some online forum. And I noticed on the forum, which is composed of a lot of people who are into food and cooking, a question posted literally just yesterday. And the question that someone posted on this group, the Facebook group to be honest, is, what is the most unusual thing you've ever eaten? Did it taste good or bad? Now, that's a simple question. It's a simple question to which 500 people so far have submitted their answers. And in reading them, I got to admit, I was kind of entertained. So let me read you just a couple of the things that people claimed were the most unusual thing they've ever eaten and whether or not it was good or bad. Let's see. Let's start right here. Okay. Claudia says frog's legs. Very good and tasty. And again, frog's legs is one of those things that it's like, it's easy not to like it because of the way it sounds, like who wants to eat a frog? But I'll tell you what, you grow up in Paris, you're eating frog, right? And I'll tell you what also, it comes with garlic and butter, and it's fantastic. I'd eat frog legs any time. They're just beautiful food. Here's the next one. Maggot in the Amazon jungle. Tasted nutty and also how I imagined mucus would taste. Now, I'm not going to go for the maggot, not because of the name maggot, but because I don't really need to imagine how mucus would taste. You know what I'm saying? Next, someone says haggis and sweetbreads. Haggis was good. One time sweetbreads good. The other time they're not. Sweetbreads, no problem. It's the kind of thing, it's weird because sweetbread sounds like it would be good, but then you tell people that it's like the thymus gland or the pancreas and they get all freaked out. Sweetbreads are great. In fact, when I commented on this, I don't know if it's the strangest thing I ever had, but when I would go to Argentina, we looked forward to going out to the steak restaurant, and before you had your Argentine steak and your glass of Malbec, right, you would order mocheca. That's how they said it down there, mocheca. And mocheca was they would take the sweetbreads, basically, the pancreas, the thymus gland, and they would put it on a grill and bring it to the table with some bread, some of that nice Argentine Malbec. Let me tell you something. I could have it right now. Right now. Love those sweetbreads. Alligator sausage in New Orleans, I wasn't a fan. I was in New Orleans 10 days ago. I happened to have had alligator, not as sausage. And you know what? It was good. The truth of the matter is that it was smothered in some kind of sauce, which kind of obliterated what the alligator would have been like on its own. It was chewy, but I had no problem with it. Sour cream and onion cricket, okay. Grasshopper. Grasshoppers are huge down in Mexico. And not a problem. Crispy, crunchy. And I can understand, again, why people would be freaked out. Nobody wants to eat a grasshopper. I mean, well, they eat them there, and they love them, and they're good. Here's one that surprised me. Biltong jerky, never again. Wrong. Doreen, I'm sorry, you're mistaken. Biltong is jerky. Jerky is good. And the biltong that I had in South Africa was fantastic. I remember it. I remember it well. I was starving, so I would have eaten anything. But they served it out in the jungle there. Gin and tonic as the sun was going down. Yeah, I love me some biltong. Nothing wrong with that. Cow brain. Texture and rich, nice texture and rich taste. I don't disagree. I've had cow brains. I got no problem with them. They're served in East St. Louis on white bread. I could do it again, not a problem. I got no problem with Kevin. Here's one. Grilled pig rectum was surprisingly not bad. Now, here's the thing. When I read that, I thought it was a joke, and then I remember seeing a picture online of a store selling pig rectums. I'm not going there personally, but I don't have any problem eating, the stomach lining. So whatever, we can. Baby bees, not interested. Jellyfish salad, it was gross, of course. Mussel inside a conch. Conch is not a problem. Conch is delicious. Conch is beautiful. You can have it in a stew. You can have it fritters, very good. You can. It's just conch. I got no problem with conch. You can have that in the Caribbean. Chocolate covered ants, okay, whatever. Fried Rocky Mountain oysters. Those are bull's testicles. This person, Will, says I was not impressed. I am impressed. I have no problem eating testicles. Chapulines, that's your Mexican insects. Up to you. Rattlesnake, fine. Barbecued, whatever. Dried squid. Squid in general is great. Any way that you have it. One of the great fried foods. I like it raw. You'll have it on the grill. Squid's all good. No problem. Do you guys have, we all have foods that we love and we hate. Balut. Yeah, I understand that. That's like an unborn egg type of thing. Deep fried scorpions. Cow heart. I don't have a problem with cow heart. Alligator, sure. Not a big deal. Haggis, blah, blah, blah. Jellyfish, insects, So, anyway, I was fascinated. Oh, sea urchin. Here's another one. First of all, I get it that people are afraid of sea urchin. Why? Because it looks like the baby pooped in its diaper. Honestly, that's exactly the color and the texture. And yet, the beauty of sea urchin, it is that it's like, God, it's like the essence of the sea. It's one of those things you can't explain, but when you have it, I'll be the first to admit it's a love or a hate. And for me, it's a love. It's a love, baby. Rice stuffed lamb stomach, sure, that's big over in your Middle Eastern. I have no problem with that. Some sort of worm and chocolate, all right. Sweetbreads, again, we've been there. Grossest chicken liver spread. Are you kidding me? I grew up on chicken liver. Don't tell me you don't like chicken liver. Nothing wrong with that. Stinky tofu, duck intestine, blackened shark. I tell you, the one that I loved, though, was this guy. Let's see, what did he have here, if I can find it? One guy that said something that I just thought was so hilarious, and I can't find it, so we'll skip it in the interest of time. Grilled intestines. Again, I think you gotta, look, I think a lot of the stuff that we're afraid of, basically, we're afraid of because it sounds weird. Right? Whale sperm, I'm not having. Not interested. Then a lot of people had, your cats and your dogs. Okay, we don't have to go there. Anyway, I just thought it was snails, escargot, another just a beautiful thing. If you have a chance to have escargot in a French restaurant, you have that. It's kind of great. It's lovely little orb of deliciousness. Again, with the garlic and the butter, it's a beautiful thing. Okay, anyway, enough of that. If I can find the one quote from this dude who said something that just made me laugh. And I can't. All right, so let us move on from this and see what the next subject is. And the next subject is, here's the guy. Right. This is a guy who said, just to close out this little piece, he had something called surströmming. And, if you go to, and from the Baltic, it's herring. It's fermented herring from the Baltic Sea. Anyway, I don't know what he said about it, but he said something that really made me laugh. I'm sorry. Okay, let us move on. Yeah, here's the thing. They do a lot of first of all, they do a lot of herring. Herring ain't one of those easy fish, right? It's like, how there are certain fish that are nice and flaky, and you're talking about your snapper. It's beautiful and light and delicate, and your flounders and your gray sole, and fantastic, right? And then you have your fish that's like steak, steaky, your tuna steak, your swordfish steak, you're like thick. But again, they're not super fishy. But then you get into those oily, fishy ones, of which herring is one. And then if you want to take herring to the next level to make it kind of potentially repulsive, you ferment it. And, because there are countries that just love that fermented taste. And by the way, I include in that, as I'm eating, Korean baked shrimp chips, wasabi flavor, that those cultures kind of grow up on fermented food, which is kind of like, it's weird tasting if you don't grow up with it, but it's great when you start to experience it. In fact, I don't I don't have time now for us, but Korean food is amazing. It's probably the hottest food in the country right now, understandably. One of the things to love about it is that the taste is like aggressive. You know what I mean? It's like they just come all at you in that Korean food, right? Because it's fermented, it's loaded with garlic, it's heavy duty and it's fantastic. And if you want to like just have a taste of Korean yourself, if you're someone that cooks and you go, all right, look, you don't have to necessarily cook Korean food, but it might be worth grabbing one of their condiments. We use in this country predominantly, ketchup, mayonnaise, and mustard. Those are kind of like your big ones. And, in your Asian culture, you do see a lot of soy sauce and you see a lot of fish sauce. In Korea, they're using something called gochujang. Speaking of fermented, it's a fermented soybean product with some spice in it. And yet, the beauty is that it's not it's not super spicy, and it's also offset by some sweetness. So if you want to have some fun, go out and buy yourself some gochujang, Gochuchang, I would say. They're selling it more and more in your supermarkets, but if you find it, grab some and just use it as a condiment. In other words, grill yourself a turkey burger, a veggie burger, a chicken breast, and dip it into some of that gochujang. Get a little taste of the Korean condiment, and it's lovely. Next up on the Hot Lunch program, Ladies and Germs, is a segment I call This Week in Costco, where I call out something great from the store that I love, because yes, I am Rob Rosenthal, the Costco ho, and this week I want to recommend a product that I found there a month ago. It's called Autumn's Gold. Autumn's Gold. It's a grain-free granola. Now, I don't care that it's grain-free, in the sense that I'm not promoting a particular dietary concept. However, Autumn's Gold grain-free granola is paleo certified, grain-free, gluten-free, non-GMO, certified paleo, blah, blah, blah. It's like labels these days. It's a subject for another show. Have to stamp like every possible thing in the world. So this one's got all those things. That doesn't matter. Let me tell you what's in this Autumn's Gold grain-free granola that you're going to want to get your hands on. It's got some almonds in there. It's got honey. It's got some pecans. You got some sunflower seeds, some coconut, and some vanilla, and some salt, and some cinnamon. And this toasted coconut almond grain-free granola is crack. You hear me? Like, sure, you could put it in your yogurt in the morning, and sure, you could put it in a bowl and dump your soy milk on top of it and feel all semi-virtuous. But you could also eat this stuff right out of the bag, man. It's like, damn, is that good. So good on you, Costco, and hello, Autumn's Gold, grain-free granola. That's the real deal. Paleo certified, gluten-free, and I don't care about any of those things. But toasted coconut, man, this is crack. Now, speaking of crack, I'm going to tell you that I have said before, I'll say it again, it's Nutella. Nutella, that's the crack cocaine of the kitchen. That said, I would like to call out my two fabulous sponsors, one of whom makes a product that literally has crack in the name. And here I am talking about Biggie's crack toffee. Okay, so let me just say this. There's a difference between caramel and toffee, and essentially the difference boils down to caramel's kind of soft and chewy, and toffee is like crunchy. So I first tasted Biggie's, and I'm not the sweet guy, right? I'm happy with savory food and eating sea urchin and bull's testicles and making some food on a fire and feeling all good about that, and taking my chicken and throwing in some herbs and some gochujang, right? But you know what? Sometimes, we all like a sweet periodically, and I'll tell you something, man. I tasted Biggie's cracked toffee, and I was just immediate. Like, sometimes you just have something, you immediately go, oh yes! So damn good. So crunchy and so crispy and so thin, right? Thin. Biggie's cracked toffee thin. So, And it comes in like, I don't know, you can get coffee flavor, you can get like, I don't know, sometimes it has like raisins and nuts in it, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's beautiful. And while, you can eat it out of the bag, what I do is I make a dessert, right? And the dessert is an Italian dessert called affogato. Oh, God, I just don't love the sound of that, affogato. Well, it means drowned, actually, in Italian, because what you do is you take a nice scoop of vanilla ice cream, and you top it with a hot shot of espresso. All right, yeah, you don't want to make espresso, so it's a super hot shot of your favorite strong coffee. And what you've immediately created as you soften the vanilla ice cream with the coffee flavor, is kind of like a syrupy, now ice cream. So you have a flavored vanilla ice cream, which is just great. And so that affogato is two ingredients of fabulousness that you can serve and impress your friends. What I do is I just dial it up one notch by taking some Biggie's cracked toffee and cracking that in there. Oh yeah, hello, beautiful. The crunch, the sweetness, just that whole combination of the soft vanilla ice cream, the coffee flavor, the crispy, crunchy toffee. Hello. All right, cracktoffee.com is what you're looking for, okay? Cracktoffee.com for your biggies. And my second sponsor and recommendation again, and I'm going to tell you something about the way I recommend things. I will only recommend those things, I promise you this, from now and forever, that I truly believe in. I would like to say that I'm prepared to be a prostitute and take money from anybody that wants me to, and I won't. I'm not telling you I won't take money. I'm telling you that I will only recommend and endorse those things that I truly believe in. That being said, allow me to recommend to you fresh flowers. Don't be looking for flowers the way that you spell it, my friends. This is Fresh Flowers, Flours, right? And this is cookies, and it's baked goods, and it's rugelach, right? And if you don't know what that is, because you could be listening to me in Timbuktu, that is the beauty of internet radio, isn't it? Like, you may just tune in to me by accident from Timbuktu and hear me talking about rugelach and go, I have no clue what this dude is talking about. Flaky dough surrounding nuts, cinnamon, and sugar. Maybe you want it with apricot in there. Maybe you want it with chocolate. And look how I said chocolate, not the way we do here in New York. Chocolate. No, it's chocolate. Raspberry in there. She also makes blondies. And she also makes, honestly, what for me, I'm simple when it comes to dessert. Give me a biscotti. Give me a good biscotti. Give it to me. I'm happy with that. I could do it straight up. I could dip it in that espresso. I could dip it in Vinsanto. I could dip it in a sweet wine. Anyway, I digress. Oatmeal raisin cookies, peanut butter cookies, fortune cookies. Now, here's the beauty. You can get cookies anywhere. What you can't do is go to Fresh Flowers and choose the cookies that you want and have them packaged beautifully and sent anywhere in the world as a present, right? So the first thing you do is you go, I'm going to choose my baked good. Maybe I want one of these beautiful sable cookies in confetti or pink, right? Or maybe I want a dozen rugelach or a blondie or some biscotti or oatmeal raisin. Let me send 50 fortune cookies. And then you're going to choose the package that they're going into because it's a heart-shaped box if it's Valentine's Day or whatever. And then after that, you're going to choose your ribbon, right? And then after that, you're going to choose your personal tag. So your personal tag is going to say, happily ever after for the people getting married, love, blah, blah, blah. Thank you for celebrating. Eat, drink, and be married. Happy 50th. I don't care. Babies being born, send them a dozen. Send the parents a dozen cookies. Your birthday, here you go. This is fantastic. Okay? And so what we're talking about here is Fresh Flowers. How do you get to them? You go to, Fresh Flowers, LIC.com. All right? Let's go to the home page there. Fresh Flowers, FLOURS, LIC.com. Check it out. Send a gift. Send something to me. I don't care. If you send it to me, by the way, make it to biscotti. Okay? Thank you. Thank you to both of you. Fresh Flowers. Love you. Great stuff. Biggie's crack. You're the finest. All right. Let's see. What else we got here? Okay, right. So let's go back to where we were, which was product. Oh, yeah. I spoke to you about the sponsors. Just a quick shout out here. The product of the week this week for me is baking soda. I know it sounds funny, right? Because I'm talking about food, but the product of the week is baking soda, and I'm not talking about baking with it. But I got an oven. I like the oven. It works. It's probably 15 years old. And you know what nobody's ever done with that oven? They never cleaned the glass on the thing. I inherited the oven. I've had it a long time. Can't see through the oven window. Because after 15 years, it builds up like, almost as if it was like a kiln, man. Like whatever it builds, whatever that shoots onto that glass is so baked in that you can't get it off with with a razor blade. I mean, it's crazy. So I don't want to spend hundreds of dollars to replace the window or the whole panel, whatever it is. So, thank you, Google. Right? You go to Google and you go clean oven glass, and the next thing you learn is over and over is you got to get baking soda. Now, you would think that you would mix that baking soda with something exotic like vinegar or Windex. No. Baking soda and water. Do you hear me? Baking soda and water until it forms a paste. That paste goes on the glass window, and then you leave it. I left mine overnight, and it was hard the next morning. And I took the sharpest scraping tool that I had and scraped off 15 years of whatever was on that window. And it is now spotless. So here's to you, baking soda. I'm sure there's 1,000 other things that you can do. I'm sure that you can use it for everything from scrubbing to cleaning your teeth to jock itch. I have no clue what you can use baking soda for, but trust me when I tell you, you got a dirty oven. Get yourself some baking soda.
User left your channel.
Now, let's see what we got for these last few minutes. We can either talk about gossip. I don't know. You know what? We're going to save the gossip. I was going to... let's just make a quick mention, though, of Salt Bae. In case you guys don't know Salt Bae. I mean, if you're on Instagram, you probably know Salt Bae, right? But if you're not, Salt Bae is a young guy, probably from Turkey. He's a chef. He has restaurants, including a steak place in New York City. Salt Bae, somebody threw up a video of this guy. I don't even know his real name. I don't know his real name. And in the video, he sprinkles salt on a steak. Now, if you go to YouTube, it's 4.5 million people, and I'm sure if you go to Instagram, it's got to be 20 million. I don't know what the numbers are. All I know is this guy is the most popular chef among the Instagram crowd of anybody in the world right now. It's a phenomenon. I haven't been to the restaurant. I can't comment on the restaurant. And I never met the dude personally. But I will say this. They wrote a profile of the guy in the New York Times this past Sunday. Like, that's how big he is. New York Times. And the article, of course, is, what does Salt Bae do on Sundays? Well, I don't know what... I can only tell you what I read. And here's what I'm going to tell you. This dude is smart. And he's successful. And by all accounts, hardworking. And working out hard, I can tell you that, because he's good to look at. So, Salt Bae, this one's for you. Can't comment on the restaurant that much, but the dude, the Salt Bae, you the man. You the man, Salt Bae. I'm not going to the restaurant. It's not my thing. And I tell you, it's just like if I want a steak, I'm going to go to a place for steak. I'm not going to a place because I need an Instagram photo, personally. That's just me. I don't mean to be grumpy. That's not me. I want one final segment here, which is the gummy bear cleanse, and it's really this one is really entirely and strictly for fun, because a lot of people go on cleanses these days. I get that. I've done it. Whatever. I mean, I've said it before. My favorite cleanse in the world is like, 2 martinis, a hot shower, throw in some peanuts. I don't care. That's a cleanse to me. That said, I had read somewhere about sugarless Haribo gummy bears. If you're not familiar with, everybody knows what gummy bears are. What you may not know is that the gummy bears when they're sugarless, use some type of product that actually is a laxative. So much so that people's reviews are hilarious. I will read you some reviews that you can see on Amazon or wherever else, and they offer the sugar-free gummy bears. Here's a review entitled, "Just don't, unless it's a gift for someone you hate." And it goes like this. "What came out of me felt like someone tried to funnel Niagara Falls through a coffee straw. I swear my sphincters were screaming. I felt like, a projectile vomiting, a torrential flood of toxic waste, flammable liquid napalm." From a review entitled, "Be sure to buy OxyClean too," it says, "Be sure to also buy a tub of OxyClean with this to get..." Okay, I can't even. I'll just do the basic one from the customer review. "Just don't unless it's a gift for someone you hate. Oh man, words cannot express what happened to me after eating these, the Gummy Bear Cleanse. If you are someone that can tolerate the sugar substitute, go ahead and enjoy, but if you're like the dozens of people that tried what I had, run. First of all, for taste, I would rate these a 5. So good, soft, true to taste, fruit flavors, just like the sugary variety. I was a happy camper. But not long after eating about 20 of these, which, as you can imagine, is not hard to do, I had a gastrointestinal experience like nothing I've ever imagined. Cramps, sweating, bloating beyond my worst nightmare. I've had food poisoning from bad shellfish that was almost like a skip in the park compared to what was going on inside of me." So, anyway, folks, look, I'm not promoting, I'm not recommending, but if you're one of those people that likes to cleanse, let me just say, there's a more fun way to do it because you got sugar-free gummy bears. Let me close out my first podcast ever by telling you about my book, in case you want to check that out. And it goes like this. I wrote a book, and the reason I wrote a cookbook was because in the division of labor in my household, with a working wife, and this happens, right? 70% of the mothers in this country are in the workforce, right? So when we broke up the jobs, I was like, I'll do the cooking, man, because I like doing it, right? So I did it for a long time, and my kids are I don't have to tell you, you talk about your own kids. Who's better, right? The kids, my kids are flawlessly perfect, except for one thing, that when it came for breakfast, they were like literally a pain in the butt because they would never eat the same thing. And I found myself making 2 breakfasts a day and then one for me, and my wife didn't even eat, but I was still down to 3 breakfasts a day, and I did it for years. I look at my kids, I go, what do I look like? A short order cook, right? And they were like, yeah, you do. You look like short order dad. So, and then my wife goes, you should really write a book about that. And then I, and of course I listened to it instantly. So the book came out 11 years later. And I tried to find, just FYI, I tried to find like a quote that you put on the opening page of a book that I think encapsulates or captures what the intent of the book is, right? And it was a quote from Jacques Pepin, who, he's just one of the great, French, but here for forever in this country. I think, he's probably 80-something, and he probably got here when he was in his 20s. But Pepin, 35 years of food television on public station, 30, cookbooks published, all over television. The guy's just the best. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, because it was the quote that impressed me, because it really totally captured what I wanted to, what I think reflected what my book was about. Pepin says, you should have fun in the kitchen and then emerge from it with flavorful, wholesome, attractive dishes that can be served to both family and guests, right? Fun, flavorful food, family, friends, right up my alley. So I write a book, right? And the thing is, I went to cooking school that you don't have to. Like, that's the thing. I'm going to tell you what it is that you need to know. And it's not just recipes. It's like, literally, I tell you what you need to know about, like, what to shop for and what to keep in the pantry and what tools are important and what ingredients you should have and what you need to know about the difference between a saute and a braise and roasting versus grilling, blah, blah, blah. Here's what you need to know. I tried to make it, like, fun. And, more importantly, there's a formula, right? And so the formula of my book with these 100 recipes is most taste, fewest ingredients, least effort. You get me? I got 100 recipes. I would say 95 of them use 5 ingredients around, more or less. My ideal meal is like 1 ingredient, but I do a ton of them with 2. So most taste, fewest ingredients, least effort. And that's what we're talking about. That is the nature of my book, Short Order Dead, which you can find anywhere that books are sold, including all your, Amazons and your Walmarts and your, wherever they sell books. So if you want that, you go ahead and grab that. And what I really look forward to, having done this now for my first time, is I look forward to next Wednesday, and I'll tell you why. Because next Wednesday we're going to have call-in. So if there's any question that you have for me, if there's any comment that you want to make, I would urge you to come back next Wednesday night. It's 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Armed Radio Global Network. Whether you're in the East Coast, the West, whether you're in Europe, South America, whether you're in Asia Pacific, or Timbuktu, ladies and germs, next Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll do it again. And I will be glad to take your questions. Maybe talk about some things that are, going to be fascinating to you. And in fact, reach me anytime you want. Look me up. Short Order Dead. You can find me anywhere online. I don't know, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Write me and say, hey, Rob, you know what you should talk about next week? Tell me how to make that 1 ingredient dish, right? Or tell me what you've eaten recently that just blew your mind. And I will also tell you, as you know, what's happening next week at Costco. So, my friends, until next Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, this is Robert Rosenthal. This is the Hot Lunch program. And I would remind you to remember this. Life is short. Never waste a meal. I'll be signing off now. And I will see you kids back next week at this very same bat time. So long for now. Thank you. Coming in.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna
Well, that was an hour
on me.